All right, I'm going to go ahead and get started and share my screen again. Feel free to ask any questions. Sheba, if you could give me access to sharing my screen. There we go. All right, so just going to do a little quick overview on Credit Voyage, and then, like I said, jump right into, 1 second here. Stop sharing. Meant to put my camera on there. All right, there we go. And share screen. Credit Voyage. There we go. Okay. All right. So there we go. All right. So I want to go back to one of the key components of what we talked about with regard to credit. And so I want to talk about the points that make up your credit and then finish up from there, talk about how do you rebuild your credit. So skipping through all this, which we talked about, I want to talk about, again, the 5 ingredients that make up your credit. So when we talk about the most important thing that makes up your credit, we're talking about your payment history. That's, have you paid consistently and on time in the past, okay? This includes any judgments, bankruptcies, foreclosures, repossessions. All of that would be included in payment history. On-time payments, of course, and delinquent payments. 30% is credit utilization. As we said, that is how much of your revolving credit you've used. So if I have a $1,000 limit, I don't want to go above 30% or $300 in my credit utilization, or I will see a negative impact on my score. 15% is credit history, the length of time each account's been open and time since the account's most recent action. 10% is new credit. It tracks whether you've opened up any new lines of credit, and this is where any inquiries, any hard inquiries are also in this area. And last is credit mix. This is the mix of loans that you have. There are only 2 types of loans on your credit report, installment and revolving. This looks to see, or ideally you have a mix of both revolving and installment. And if you have both of those, multiple installment and multiple revolving, you will get the 10% credit mix, the 10% here. Any questions on this? Just as a quick review, any questions about what makes up your credit and your overall credit score? Okay. All right. So let's talk about what happens if you only pay the minimum. And I don't know if we got this far before, but if you, an example here is if Mr. Lewis has a $2,500 balance, 18% interest rate. By paying only the minimum on his credit card, it's going to take 19 years to pay it off, and he's going to pay $4,800 in interest. Ms. Clark has the same balance, but she pays an extra $100 per month. So she pays $125 each month. In 2 years, she'll have paid it off with only $444 in interest. Okay. Any questions about that? Anybody have any questions about why it takes so long to pay it off if you only pay the minimum? Okay. Skip over this. So now let's talk about what are the strategies to rebuild or build credit if we've damaged it or we don't have any credit established. All right. One of the key things is to know that you're not alone. There's over 35 million Americans, I know it says 25, it's way higher than that now, that don't have any credit history. Okay, so how do I begin to build credit history? Because oftentimes if you have no credit history, in the banks and lenders are hesitant to give you. So one of the ways is with using a secured card. That's where you put up an amount as a collateral, and the bank or the credit union will give you a card with a limit equal to or more than the amount that you've put up as collateral. Okay, that's one way. Another way is using a credit builder loan. Self.com and some nonprofits offer small loans that they don't give you the funds. They put it in a savings account. You make monthly payments. They'll report it as an installment payment. And once you've paid the loan off, they'll release the savings account to you. Okay, you can use either one or both of those as a way to build your credit if you have none, or rebuild your credit if you have damaged your credit and you aren't able to get unsecured loans or all of your credit's been closed out and you need to get new credit reporting to help rebuild your score. Understand that all of the behaviors we just listed, doing those is one thing, but also you do need to have some new credit reporting if you don't have any to rebuild your credit. And you, of course, have to get credit reporting if you have none for you to establish a credit score, okay? Or to begin to establish a credit score and then ultimately get that score up into the 700s. As you may remember, we talked about good credit scores are in the 700s. So ideally, we want scores in the 740, 750, 780 range. Now, that doesn't mean you have to be there today. That's just what we want to work towards, is a score in that realm, okay? Any questions about how to raise your score or what to do to build your credit, or what the steps are that are involved?
What are the steps?
Well, I mentioned that you can look to first get a secured credit card. Many banks and credit unions offer secured credit cards, okay?
Okay.
So that would be one thing. You talk to them about getting a secured card. Also, there's what's called credit builder loans. So you can talk with a company, like, for instance, there's a company out there called Self. So you can go on self.com, but there are also nonprofit organizations in various areas that you can ask them, do they offer a credit builder loan? Basically, they approve you, say, let's say for $500. They'll put it in the savings. You don't get the funds. You'll make payments, say, for 12 months of $50. Once you've made those payments, but every month you report, you make the payment on time, they'll report it as an on-time payment, okay? By doing that, it's going to help build or rebuild your credit. Now, once you've paid it off, they're going to release those funds and you will get the $500 that you're approved for. In both cases, what they're doing is they're using the money as collateral, because again, if you have damaged credit or no credit, it may be too risky for you to get an unsecured loan. Unsecured means there's no collateral, okay? In both of these cases, they're secured loans, a secured revolving credit card or a secured installment loan.
All right. Thank you.
Does that help?
Yes.
Okay, great question. Anytime I go too fast or I don't explain something, just let me know. Love to slow down and make sure you understand it, because this is very critical, because a lot of people have trouble establishing or reestablishing credit, okay?
Yes.
All right. Also, just be aware, I mentioned it probably before, but I'll mention it again. Make sure you make your payments on time. One missed payment can drop your score 100 points, okay? If you run into problems and you can't pay a creditor, can't pay a loan on time, can't pay a credit card, call the creditor, reach out to them, let them know. Most of the time they'll work with you, especially if you've been paying on time in the past. Their goal is not to damage your credit, okay? Their goal is to get paid back for the loan. And most of them will work with you. They might adjust it and say, okay, we'll give you 60 days forbearance and we'll put these 2 payments at the end. They're still going to get their money, but they're willing to give you 60 days to kind of get yourself together, get your finances together, and get things paid up. Don't avoid your creditors, work with them. They want to work with you. Keep under 30%, we already talked about that. And then we also talked about the other things as far as, account history. Don't close out any older credit cards that you have, because you'll lose the account history that goes with that. Okay?
Okay.
Any questions on credit before we transfer to savings? Excuse me.
No, that was fantastic. Thank you so much.
Did it help, Barb?
It did. I thought I had heard one time you should keep it under 40%. It's interesting. It's 30% now. So yeah, that was very informative.
Yeah, it's 30%. And ideally, if you can keep it below 10, 30% gets you good. Under 10% is excellent. Okay.
Awesome. Thank you.
No problem. All right, I'm going to stop sharing here and pull up the other PowerPoint that I have. So I'm going to share my screen again. And let's talk about savings. Savings it kind of gets the short shrift. People want to invest. They want to buy real estate. They want to invest in Bitcoin. They want to invest in the stock market. All good things potentially. And if you understand what you're doing and you have a long-term perspective, are great at building wealth. But savings is key as well. And I'll talk to you about why it's important to have, build a strong savings habit. Savings can prevent a problem from becoming a crisis. most US households face multiple major unexpected expenses, especially over the last 2 years of the pandemic. Savings can keep you safe from what we call debt spirals. That's where one debt and not being able to pay a critical item causes you to miss something else and fall in further and further behind. Okay, even a small amount of savings can help you avoid financial hardship. The average 40% of American households don't have $500 in emergency savings. Okay, that means just one missed paycheck can put them into a very difficult financial position and cause them to not be able to pay certain bills. Okay, so one of the things we want to talk about is, how do I build a savings habit? Some people are good savers. Some people it's very easy to save. Others, it's a little bit of a challenge. So let's talk about the 3 different types of savings goals. There's rainy day savings, emergency savings, and targeted savings. Rainy day savings are for small, unexpected expenses. Okay, that's where you're driving along and your tire goes out, or you hear something under the hood of your car, or you have to go to the hospital and it's $150 deductible. Those are the kinds of things that are unexpected, but they're not huge expenses. Now, an emergency savings, though, is a bigger cushion to keep you secure through what we call not an unexpected expense, but a crisis. It could be losing your job. Okay, it could be hours being cut back from your job. You were working 40 hours, 45 hours, and they've decided right now we've got to cut back and you're only getting half of those hours. Well, that's significant. Your budget probably can't, afford to just take that. So now you're in a situation where, okay, I've got to dip into my savings until my hours come back, or I find another job to make up, or a new job that I can get full 40 hours with. Okay, so the goal is on the emergency savings is to try to save so that you can have 3 to 6 months worth of expenses. So if my monthly expenses are $2,300, I want to try to save $5,000 to $6,000. Now that doesn't happen overnight, but I want to build up to that goal potentially, because then this way I have a 3-month cushion if I should lose my job or I have a major crisis financially. And last but not least, targeted savings. These are for planned expenses, whereas the first 2 cover unexpected things. Planned expenses are things that you're looking forward to. You may be planning a big trip. You want to go. One of my coworkers is going to Greece for her honeymoon. So it might be putting a down payment on an apartment. You need $1,000 for the security deposit and $1,000 for the first month's rent. So you're looking to do that. Could be that you're saving up for the down payment on a car. Whatever it is, maybe you just want to have $500 in your savings account because you've never had that much in there, and getting to $500 is a great accomplishment. And then you feel like there you can launch out and build off of that. Whatever the goal is, targeted savings are where you have a plan for that money. You say, this is what I'm saving towards, and I'm going to put some money aside month after month with a specific goal of being able to buy something, travel, or do whatever I have planned for those funds. Okay. Now, I don't recommend that you necessarily have to have 3 separate savings accounts. You can lump your rainy day savings and emergency savings all together in one account, and call it your emergency savings. And when rainy day expenses happen, you use out of it. But I would recommend separating out your targeted savings. The reason I say that is, if you have to dip into your emergency savings, it hurts a little bit, but that's what it's there for. But if they're all lumped together and you're always thinking, well, a portion of that is for me to take my trip I've been looking forward to. If you have to dip into that one account, psychologically, it can make you feel like you've hit a really big setback, okay, and can discourage you from moving forward. So I like to keep the targeted savings separate and use the emergency and rainy day savings first, and only touch the targeted savings if it's really a critical emergency and I don't have enough in my rainy day and emergency savings fund. Okay. So today we're going to talk about setting a savings goal. And I'm going to ask you guys to talk back to me. You guys are being a little quiet tonight. So I just want you to talk back to me and tell me, if you wouldn't mind, if anybody wants to share, no pressure, if you have a specific goal that you'd like to share. In other words, and we started with this saying, my life will be better once I've saved up to. So what is a goal, something that you want to achieve? It could be short term in the next 1 to 12 months. It could be medium term from 2 to 4 or 5 years, or it could be long term, 5 years or longer. Anybody want to share a goal that they know that they can only reach by saving? In other words, I'm saving up to do this, or this is gonna, my life will be better. It'll be great when I have saved up for this. Anybody have a goal they want to share?
I do.
All right, go ahead, Barb.
My goal would be, my husband and I, we married 33 years. We have always wanted to go somewhere into the Caribbean. So
All right.
we have talked about how we are, and we're actually doing this right now. We wanted to save $10,000 to go on a 2-week vacation, pretty much anywhere, and do whatever we want in the Caribbean for 2 weeks.
So that's
We've
a
never done that.
targeted.
Yeah, it's a targeted one.
So
Yeah.
that's a targeted savings. Well, I understand. I can relate. My wife and I, we're going on 35 years, and one of our goals is to I have 2 more years with my son in college, but we'd like to travel as well. We've been to the Caribbean a couple times, a couple places, but we really haven't traveled as much as we'd like to. And so we have the same type of thing, saving towards being able to travel and go to the Caribbean. I'd like to go to France, and I'd love to go to England and see Wimbledon. So again, targeted savings, excellent job. Anybody else? Anybody else want to share? And it could be targeted, it could be emergency, it could be just want to have X amount saved because I'll feel better. No other takers? All right, no problem. So again, in terms of savings, one of the things you want to do is you want to choose a specific goal. And I like what Barb said. She has a dollar amount. She has a reason that she's saving for it. What we want to do is choose one single goal that you can picture clearly. You know, I imagine that Barb's already thinking about what it's going to feel like to have the warm sand under her feet, sitting by the beach, you know, umbrella, relaxing by the pool, taking a nice bike ride. Whatever your goal is, we want you to envision how you're going to feel when you are successful. Okay. Once I've achieved this, how am I going to feel? How is that going to make me feel? But not just myself. Let me admit Zay here. It's also how are the people around me going to feel? Okay. A lot of times when we are able to hit our savings goals and achieve our goals, it doesn't just impact us. It impacts our children and our family as well. You know, a lot of times if we save enough for that down payment on that new apartment, you know, people want like, wow, I didn't think you were going to be able to do it, or saving for a house, or having enough in an emergency fund, or to go back to school, whatever it is. Okay. So ask yourself, how will I feel? Where will I be? And how will the people you love feel? I want you to picture it as clearly as possible. Okay. Picture it as clearly as you can. So here's an example of someone who wants to pay for repairs for their car. Doesn't sound very exciting, but look at what this person says. I will feel less stress in the mornings about getting to work on time. If I can take my car instead of the bus, I'll have more time to eat with my kids. So by having my car repaired, it means more family time, more time with my kids, more time at home in the evening, help them with their homework. So a lot of times when we hit our savings goal, there's an emotional connection. There's something that we want to do with that, or a feeling that we get, having the money in the bank. So I don't worry about, you know, living paycheck to paycheck. I'm not anxious if, you know, things happen. I know I've got a cushion that I can fall back on. Whatever it makes you feel, write it down. Write down how it makes you feel and how you're going to feel once you achieve that goal for the savings that you've set aside. Now, let's talk about how is the best way to save. Some people and some people work well with having a budget, and there are lots of good budgeting apps out there. But one of the ways that I've found is the best way to save is to pay yourself first. In other words, have your savings come out from the top and live off of what's left. Now, you can still operate with a budget, so to make sure that you can maximize how much you're saving, but the best way is to have it come out, have it go direct deposit into your savings account, not into your checking and then transfer it, but have it go directly. So you simply have your employer or whoever is paying you the funds say, hey, I'd like to have $100. If that's your goal, I want $100 or $50 or $5. It doesn't matter how much it is. You can start wherever it's comfortable for you. I want to have that go directly into my savings. Okay. And this way, whatever I get into my checking, I know what I can spend all of that. I've already taken care of my savings. Okay. Rather than having it go into your checking, paying all your bills and saying, okay, if I have enough left over, I'm going to save. That's not usually a successful plan. A more successful plan is paying yourself first and having your savings come off at the top and go directly into a savings account. This way you don't see it, you don't touch it. Okay. So how do you do that? Well, if you get a regular paycheck and it comes in, say, every 2 weeks, you can have your payroll department, if they're willing to do it, separate it out. If they don't, then you could even set it up at your bank where if you know your paycheck comes in at specific times, ask them to automatically transfer it into your savings account. So the ideal way is to have your job or whoever's sending you the money, paying you the funds, if they can do payroll deduction and put that specific amount into a savings account, or to set it up and ask your bank to do an automatic transfer ultimately every, on the, say, the 16th and the last day of the month. This way, you'll have gotten a paycheck and you know that, okay, I want to have them transferred. I don't want to have to think about it. Okay. So how often are you going to save? If you get paid every 2 weeks, then every 2 weeks. If you get paid every week, then once a week. Okay. If it's once a month that you get paid, you can set it up for once a month, or if you can still try to do it every 2 weeks or twice a month, that would be better. But if ultimately you can't do it until you get paid, that's fine. Just set it up automatically. When your check comes in, have some of it go directly into your savings, and whatever you have left over, you live off of. And here's why that's important. Let's say you get paid this Friday and you know you've already taken your savings out, and you only have $20 left in your account to make it through today and tomorrow till you get paid Friday. And someone comes and says, hey, let's go hang out. Let's go do something. You look at your bank account and you say, no, I can't. I've just got enough, a little bit of gas, and I got to make it to Friday till I get paid again. Okay. Now, if you didn't take your savings out and you've got $120 left in there, and you're like, man, I need to put some savings aside. But someone calls you up and says, hey, let's go hang out this evening. You're more likely to say, yeah, okay, I deserve it. I'll save it next week, especially if the money is sitting there and you have a choice between hanging out with a friend or putting that $100 in your savings. Okay. The other thing is, when you put savings at the bottom, oftentimes, most months, there are things that you didn't plan for, and that's going to force you or eat up what you would have saved. By taking the money off the top, you already adjust your spending and say, okay, certain things I can't do this month because this is what I've got left. So my suggestion is move savings to the top, have it come out first. Whatever's left in your checking, that's what you live off of. Okay. Any questions about how to set up a savings, how to build your savings and what you need to do to establish a plan so that your savings automatically goes into your savings account and not into your checking? Okay. All right. So how much can you easily save, especially if you've never saved before? Don't start with a big number. Don't set a high goal that you may not be able to achieve. Whatever's a small amount that you know you can save very easily. Why do we suggest a small amount when you first start? Well, it's psychological. If you set a small amount and you achieve it, now you feel like I can do more. But if you set a very lofty goal, especially if you're not accustomed to saving, it's not something that comes naturally to you. If you don't achieve it in the first couple months, you're more likely to get discouraged and quit. So we'd rather see you set an easy goal and for you to say, I don't even miss the money, honestly. Honestly, I could probably even save twice as much. So let's say you're putting aside $10 per paycheck because you just wanted to dip your toe in. Okay. Now you say, honestly, I'm not missing it. So that's fine. After 2 or 3 months of consistently saving it every 2 weeks, let's increase it to $20. Okay. And then give yourself 2 or 3 months and see how that works with your budget. If it's still not too high, great. Now raise it to 25 or 30. Okay. But again, start with a small dollar amount that you can easily save. You can always adjust it over time. Okay. Don't worry if it's small. I always say never despise small beginnings. Okay. So write down, and the reason we recommend writing things down is studies show that when you write down a goal, whether it's a savings goal, I'm going to save $100 every paycheck or $5 every paycheck. Okay. You're more likely to stay committed to it. The couple things that increase the likelihood of you achieving your goal: one, writing it down; two, sharing it with somebody who you trust and ask them to help you stay on track. So let's say you have a friend who's very good at savings, or they're just a really good friend, and you know that if you share with them your goal of doing whatever, and that you want somebody to be an accountability partner, to call you on the carpet if you just go randomly spend, or to encourage you when you feel like throwing your hands up and giving up, doing that also increases the likelihood that you're going to make your goal. Okay. So how do I get excited about what I'm doing with regard to savings? Well, there's a tactic called what we call numerization. Let's say I know I can put aside $50 a week. I know that if I cut back on some extra spending and other things, I can save $50 a week. Well, if you think there's 52 weeks in a year, let's take out 2, so we have 50. Let's say maybe 2 weeks out of the year, I don't put anything aside. So if I save $50 every week, at the end of 50 weeks, I've got $2,500. That sure sounds a lot better than $50. I look up and I go, wow, I'm going to have $2,500 at the end of this year that I didn't have before. What can I do with $2,500? Well, that might be the down payment on my car if I need to get a new car. Okay, $2,500 could be the amount I save for a nice trip. Okay, or it could be the money I've put aside to start up my own little small business. I want to do I'm working a job, but I want to have a side hustle, and so I put aside the money so I can do what I need to start my little business. Okay. And I know a lot of different people that have different side hustles. This weekend I'm going away. I have a woman that watches my dog for $40 a night. So from Thursday through Sunday, I'm gonna have to pay her $160 to watch my dog. Okay, that's side income that she makes. Okay, I know someone else who's sells real estate on the side. Another person who does catering. Again, so whatever you do along with your regular income, if you do something else, earmark that part of that for savings as well. Okay. So if you choose a weekly goal, you want to multiply it times 50. If it's bi-weekly, because you get paid every 2 weeks, then multiply it times 25. We know there's 26 payments in a year and 52 weeks, but we just use round numbers so you can see how quickly your savings can add up. And when you see that, that's more likely to motivate you than just thinking about how much you're putting aside every month. $50 doesn't sound really like much until you think about, if I do that every week, I'm going to have $2,500. If I do that for 2 years, I'm going to have $5,000. Okay. Now you're starting to talk about money that you can put towards a down payment. That's money that you can use, again, if you're going to start a small business. That's money that, again, you might even be able to increase what you're doing in investments. Maybe you could take a portion of it, not most of it, but a small portion, and say, okay, I'm going to invest this steadily into the stock market and into mutual funds, because I want to get a higher return than I'm getting on my savings. Okay. Remember, savings is not designed to give you high interest rates and you to make money. It's really designed for your money to be safe, to know that I'm not going to lose what I've put in the account. Okay. Any questions so far? Okay, we always want to set ourselves up for success. Remember, I told you, don't bite off more than you can chew. Don't make a big goal that you're not likely to hit. Okay. Oftentimes people try to do too much, especially right off the bat. They want to get started savings. They're gung-ho about doing it. That's great. But start small. You can always increase it. It's better to start small, be successful, and increase it than start really big, fail, and throw your hands up and quit. Okay. So think about some ways that you can reduce costs. Some people say to me, Mr. Sean, I can't save any money. I've got all these bills. There's nothing that I can, nothing that I have extra. Okay. Well, think about your spending and think about some of the ways that you might be able to cut your expenses. For example, shop around for frequent purchases. Okay. Maybe a grocery store has a cheaper price. Maybe a gas station is 15, 20 cents less. Maybe you can find an app, that helps you get discounts on your gas. Okay. Find cheaper or free alternatives. Things like some weekends, instead of going to the movie, say, hey, let's go old school. Call up some friends and let's play Monopoly. There's a game that my daughter's boyfriend introduced us to called Catan. We can sit around and play 2-3 hours of Catan. No money expended, not going to, not burning any gas, not going to the movies, not buying the popcorn in the can. Not that you can't do that, but some weekends you just say, you know what, I'm going to stay put. and I'm going to save money. I could run out. I have a couple dollars, but you know what? I'm going to hold on to this, and I might even put this in my bank account, my savings account. I'm going to take a free alternative weekend. Maybe I'm going to go for a walk, go out into a park, go somewhere where it's either free or inexpensive. Okay. Avoid fees. Okay. Unsubscribe. Sometimes we subscribe to things. I'm guilty for that. I'll take a free subscription all day, 6 months free, 6 months, $3 a month, but it always reverts back to something else later. And I always have to remember, or my wife catches it and says, what did you sign up for? Okay. So those are just some of the ways here. Some more ways you can cut your expenses. The coupon app. Okay. Capital One has a great coupon app. It helps you to find any coupons that are out there. Get groceries at a cheaper store. If you're single, go in with somebody else, and maybe you can buy, twice as much for less than twice the price. Okay. Find free activities. That's what I'm talking about. Whether it's a museum, whether it's going out and walking in nature, whether it's, sitting at home and watching something on the television, as opposed to going to the movie theater. What about, making your own coffee as opposed to going to Starbucks? That's a big way to save some money, at $5, $6. I have a friend who also even showed that the cups are even smaller than they used to be. So they're charging you the same or more, and the cups they're giving you less. Okay. Cook extra dinner and bring it for lunch. That's a one way. Some people every day, 5 days a week, when they're in person in the office, they're going for lunch. That can be pretty expensive. And ultimately, if you cooked extra dinner and brought your own lunch, you might save money, and it'd also probably be healthier for you. So along with that, I already mentioned you may look at ways to increase your income. So we talked about ways to decrease your expenses. Maybe you can do a side hustle. Maybe you're good at catering. Maybe you're good at baking. Maybe you're good at doing some other things where you can make some money, and that money you can direct towards your savings, especially if you feel like there's no extra money at the end of the month for me to pay all my bills and save money. Okay, then maybe you really do need to increase your income. Okay, so I'll skip to this. So things don't always go according to plan. Here's the challenge for most people, whether it's savings, whether it's eating healthy, whether it's exercise, is that things don't always go according to plan. We're excited in the very beginning, but after a week or two, a month or two, 4 weeks, we start to get discouraged. We're not as excited. Okay. So when things don't go according to plan, have a backup plan. Okay. Maybe the person who was your accountability partners moved out of the area. Okay. Or has so much on their plate, they can't stay on top of you to encourage you. Have a backup plan. Who would you do instead of that person? Who would you do in addition to that person? Maybe you ought to have 2 accountability partners, 2 people who you feel like you can go to and say, hey, I'm thinking about making this purchase, but I really feel like it's extra. I don't really need to do it. It's not something I need. I need you to give me some perspective, and hopefully they will convince you that maybe it'd be better for you to hold on to your money and save it, especially because none of us knows what the economic future holds. Okay, we could head into a recession where we get high unemployment. That's why it's always important to put aside a portion, even if it's a small portion, even if it's $5 from every paycheck, even if it's just emptying the coins out of your pocket into the giant water, one of those big water pitchers that you dump on the water at your job. Some people save in those. Whatever it is, there's some banks that have a thing called keep the change, where you swipe your debit card, it'll round it up, and it'll put the roundups in your savings account. That's a really neat, slick way to save it. You don't really even feel it. You're going to spend $17.50 at the CVS. It'll just round it up to 18 and put that 50 cents in a savings account for you. Really, really one of the least taxing ways to save, along with having automatic direct deposit, or what we call payroll deduction, go directly into your savings account, and the rest of your salary, the rest of your income go into your checking. Okay. Any questions so far? What happens when things don't go according to plan? Have a backup plan. Make sure that you've got a backup plan to go with your primary plan. Okay. So once you look at the plan that you've either written in on this page or that you have in your mind, okay, one of the things you want to say is, what is my backup plan? But you also want to remind yourself that, let's say you run into a situation where you have to use the money before you wanted to, before you were ready to borrow, to use the funds. You're saving it for that trip like Barb is, but you have to dip into it. One of the things you have to remember, a setback is not a failure, okay? If you did need to spend your savings for a need, not a want, a need, okay? Before you got to your goal, it's okay. Remind yourself, get back on that horse. Don't get frustrated and stop, saving. Just say, okay, once I get to, next month, I'm going to make sure to put the money aside. Okay, I'm going to make sure that I cut back on some of my spending so I can make sure to put the money aside that I need to. Okay, remember, setbacks are not failures. If you need to spend your savings before you reach your goal, it's okay. The more important thing is that you don't quit. Okay, that's the key. Don't quit. We all run into setbacks. We all run into roadblocks. It's how you handle them and how you plan for them that really determines whether or not you're able to overcome them. So let's look at some couple ways that you can remind yourself and make yourself excited about what you want to do. You can use a reminder app or set one through your calendar to tell you to save money, remind you to put some aside. You can go old school and write it down, your steps on a piece of paper, on a paper calendar. Every month, put money in savings, or every month, $50 more in savings, okay? As your savings grows and your income grows, you may want to step up how much you're saving, okay? You can take a picture of your plan and set it as your lock screen. So if you have a plan to save, $100, or let's go, $25 every paycheck for the next 2 years, okay? So that your goal is, say, well, I get paid every week, so $25 times 50 is $1,250. At the end of 2 years, I'm going to have $2,500 in a savings account, and that's going to help me maybe be able to put a down payment on a vehicle so I don't have to take the bus anymore. So you can lock it as a screensaver. Another thing I say with your smartphone is, if you're saving towards a goal, take a picture of the thing that you want to achieve. So let's say you want to get your own apartment. You want to move out from where you're staying. Take a picture of a nice apartment, just like the one you want to get. Take a picture of a nice apartment. You can Google that, a nice picture of an apartment with a balcony, whatever it is. So every time you pick up your phone, you see it and it mentally registers, that's what I'm working towards. Some people do that with pictures of their children. Every day they go to work, they take a look at a picture of their child, because sometimes their job just takes everything out of them, but it reminds them what they're working for. It reminds them that they're working for a future for their children, and it helps push them forward. Putting on your screen lock something that reminds you of your goal. When I get there, when I get to the Caribbean, when I finish school, because I'm planning to go back to school, so that whatever your goal may be, once I've saved enough for a down payment on a car, I'm going to feel so proud that I saved the money. I worked on my credit. My credit was good. I got pre-approved before I went into the bank, like that that man from Capital One told me. I negotiated a good deal on my vehicle. I got a low interest rate because my credit and my income were good, and everything worked out well for me. I'm driving around now in my vehicle. Those are the kind of testimonies that we love to hear. Someone who said, you know what? I took to heart what you talked about credit. I took to heart what you said about savings. And now I've put myself in a better position. I've got my emergency savings. Maybe you're not saving for any goal other than you want to have money in the bank as a cushion. Because some people are very nervous. I'm one of those people. I like to have savings, and then I like to have backup savings. Growing up in a single parent household, it was tough. We had enough to eat, but we didn't always have a ton of extra money. So I'm always very conscious of having extra put aside in case the economy turns down, your job lets you go, okay? A lot of times people live paycheck to paycheck and they're spending everything they make. Not everybody, but they never put something aside. They never have a goal. They're just like, hey, whatever happens, happens. I'm not, I'm not shooting for the moon. I'm just going to walk here, and whatever happens, happens, okay? That's a challenging way to live, okay? Because chances are when whatever happens, happens, they're going to reach out to the other people who said, nah, I've got to put some money aside on a regular basis. And then last but not least, you can write it on a sticker. and put it somewhere. You can put it in your bathroom, on your nightstand. My goal is to blank, save $1,000. My goal is to take a second honeymoon or take a trip to the Caribbean. My goal is to buy a new car in 18 months, okay? Or buy a used car in 18 months. And I plan to save $100 a month for the next 18 months. Whatever it is, and however you want to remind yourself, just do it, okay? Reach out to someone who's a trusted counselor or advisor, see if they can help keep you on track. You don't have to spend a lot of time with them. You're just calling them up and saying, hey, I did it 13 months in, and I've been putting aside X amount every month. I'm really feeling good about that, okay? So just keep that in mind. So let's talk about what we've done today. We've chosen a savings goal. For those of you who chose one, we found some strategies. We talked about paying yourself first. As I mentioned, there are also apps that you can use to look at your budget. You want to put in your budget all of your expenses, all of your expenses that are on the credit report, and you want to account for some of the other expenses that you don't see on a credit report, like childcare, like gasoline, transportation, okay? So we found some strategies. We can cut back on some of those expenses, or we can find ways to increase our income. And then we made a plan. It doesn't have to be a long, sophisticated plan. It could just be a plan scribbled on a piece of paper, as long as you can read it, okay? Now take your saving steps and make a commitment to help yourself build wealth by building your savings, and you'll be much more successful. I'm gonna stop here at this point. And any questions about savings, what we've covered, checking credit and savings, any questions? Wow, this is a quiet group tonight. All right, if there are no further questions, Sheba, I'm going to go ahead and turn it back over to you.
I have nothing this evening. I think this was good information, especially for savings. And, I just thank everybody for coming. If there are questions, ask questions in our last few minutes. Yes, Letitia, I am recording all of these and will share them. I'll upload them to YouTube, but I'll share them to the group through email once we get all the recordings. Sean, there's a question about, are you going to share the slides?
Oh, yes, I'll send them to you. As soon as I get off here, I'll send the slides for credit and also for savings. Absolutely.
Yes, so with that, I thank everybody. We'll give y'all back 13 minutes.
There you go, 13 minutes. Time is money. Have a great evening. Look forward to seeing you next week.
Thanks, everybody.
Take care.